And like, I think that what you're talking about too is like a good gauge of whether or not you are like having that effect on people, right? Like, if you're doing something that you're truly passionate about, you will impact people in a way that they'll be drawn in and excited by your excitement. But if you're doing something that you're not that thrilled about, you might just like try telling it to someone else and you'll notice that like they're not that interested because you're not that interested.
Hi, I'm Jason.
I'm Fran.
I'm Carly.
This is Bo Peter.
And I'm Nicole. And this is Marketing for What Matters, where we explore how marketing paired with a regenerative mindset can uplift humanity, heal the planet, and still achieve profitable business growth.
Well, hello. Welcome to a new episode of Marketing for What Matters. Hey, Carly.
Hello.
I promise I'll introduce you formally. For everyone who's joining us and is used to season one, this is going to look a little different because we have a new host, Karli Petrovic. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes. And this whole episode got started all of 15 minutes ago when she asked me a question over Slack and, asked me a question to help her create some content and write some content for Peaceful Media's upcoming zine, which we're super excited about here. So Carly, do you want to briefly share that story and then also maybe touch on what you do here at Peaceful Media?
Sure. So I think lesson number one is never ask Jason a question over Slack because this is where you might end up. But yes, so Peaceful Media, right, is creating this new zine. I'm kind of running the content for it. And I think that what's important to share is that we're creating this out of a deeper conversation about trying to be human in a digital age. And we see people doing this in various ways. And for, a media company that's trying to do good, that's trying to reach people tangibly, having something that you can hold in your hands and isn't just on a screen is really powerful. So we started talking about what that looks like and how do we make it something that isn't, just something you can scroll through or, something that like you throw away. It's, you get this piece of marketing material and the whole thing feels like an ad and it's kind of gross and you just don't want to be a part of it. So how can we do something different? And what it started to be and what I started to realize about this is that like we need your story of how Peaceful Media came to be in order to kick off this zine, right? People need to understand what you were trying to do, how you built this company from the ground up in order to kind of take this seriously and connect with it, I think, in a deeper way, especially for the first one, right? Like where you're introducing yourself, it makes sense to have you as the face of introducing it. And so what I do here at Peaceful, as you know, but listeners probably don't, is I write a lot of stuff. And so I really try to focus on creating beautiful words.
Carly. This is what you write is not stuff.
Well, it sometimes feels like stuff, or when it starts out, it's stuff. And then we try to craft it into something beautiful and powerful and impactful.
Yeah, I'll extend what you just said. I think if I'm reading between the lines here of why you asked that question is the zine is also going to be following a seasonal cycle, the Earth seasons, and also how we can incorporate the Earth seasons into human seasons. And we've sort of by happen chance, just sort of have collected a lot of team members and beautiful hearts here that do have that connection with the Earth and this desire to better understand the moods of life and how the Earth seasons can be incorporated and also inspire our manifestations, our creativity, our growth, our work out in the world. And so that will be a sort of thematic framework for these quarterly zines that go out around each of the solstices. So I'm imagining, Carly, we're going to be creating spring as our first one. So I'm imagining when we were thinking about spring and the sort of the things growing, the things coming up from the earth and the underneath coming forth into the world, then you're like, wait a sec, I need to know I need to know Jason's inception story here at Piece of Media. Is that correct?
Yeah, because what is like spring is the time of planting seeds, right? And like long ago, you planted the seed of peaceful media and it's growing in various ways. And there have been seasons, right, where like you harvest things, you get rid of things. Sometimes even, as you do with nature, you burn it to the ground in order to create the fertile ground for it to grow again. So, what was that seed planting like in the beginning? How can we kind of go through that process of what it takes to plant something and watch it grow?
Beautiful. Well, that story. So just so you can kind of see behind the scenes of our podcast here, we've been talking about Karli being a host here at Marketing for What Matters in Peaceful Media and doing a lot more public facing content, underneath the Peaceful Media umbrella. In fact, she's Karli, if I can toot your horn, she's a phenomenal writer, tarot reader, content creator, and just creator over on Substack on the Bored Aquarian channel. So do look her up. We'll put her in the show notes, of course, so that you can go check out the writing. And it actually weaves into what I wanted to share today, so that this is as useful as possible for you, the listener, who may be considering launching your own business, right? Doing your thing, your passion, your big idea that may feel a little scary. It might feel like, ooh, that little branch is real thin out there. And I have a lot of things that I need to take care of in my life, financially, whatever, in order to even consider that. Or this is not a practical idea. And so I want to share, as part of the inception story or the origin story of Peaceful Media, I thought it may be useful to kind of encapsulate some of the principles that have made Peaceful Media what it is today. And, you can attach adjectives to our agency if you'd like. It's a little tenuous. It's all subjective. What success means to me is wildly different than another agency owner or another business person, right? And so I think you need to know, like, what matters to me is that I feel like we're expressing ourselves courageously with all of our hearts and doing magical work that uplifts humanity and heals the planet. And all the better if we can be surrounded by people who also want to do the same thing and clients who also want to do the same thing. So that's how we measure success at Peaceful Media is, do I feel like I'm using my precious time here on this planet in the best way possible, in the most, not just productive as in getting work done and but am I impacting? Am I making a difference in the world? And if so, then this is a success. And as we'll talk about throughout this episode, the other things that you use to measure success, i.e. money, status, followers, all that stuff, is a tertiary concept. Karli, do you have anything to riff on that before I go into this 4-part framework?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think what you hit on and what most people are afraid of when they start something is that, like, it being fulfilling for me is not enough. But the truth is that because it's been fulfilling for you, it has ultimately been fulfilling for other people as well. But like, we can't really help other people if we're miserable and doing work that feels undermining to ourselves. And so, like, it's easier said than done to separate the money aspect from the joy aspect, because life requires money and we don't, it's hard to separate. But that fulfillment piece really is so important. And I like that you touched on that, because it's easy to discount our own joy in this process. When you have a big idea, most likely it's because, like, it felt joyful for you. It felt purely creative. And then you have to figure out the rest from there. But like, that's actually a really legitimate starting point. It doesn't have to be like, I already know how to make money. It's, I know that this makes me happy and I'll be able to put my energy behind it.
Okay, the table is beautifully set. We may need to do this in two sections here, but let's jump in, because I think if I were thinking about a title for this episode of Marketing for What Matters, it would be something along the lines of, follow your bliss, the money will come. Just because I know when you're searching through YouTube's, so many people are looking for answers to how do I make money by following my bliss, right? It is so many decisions we make in our vocations and careers do get filtered through that lens of, can it replace my current income, right? Karli, I know you're considering all of these things in real time, right? With Board Aquarian. Can it replace what I'm making doing the things that aren't totally alive within me? Or if you're just getting started out in a career, then obviously it's like, can it make the money that'll help me, buy the things that my friends and family members think I should have, so wherever you're coming at this from, I think the things I'm going to share with you today with Karli here will help you just reorient and perhaps change a few paradigms or change a few stories that you've told yourself about what it takes to be successful. Does that sound good?
Yeah. On that note, now we need to hear more.
Okay. All right. Let's jump in. So there are four, right? So four sort of principles, and each one has a brief story and some props. So I'm going to be doing some screen sharing, but each one also has a quote to kick it off. All right. So the first one is Joseph Campbell's simple message: follow your bliss. And the story behind this one for me was, I'm a traditional kind of jock dude up in University of Montana. I got a full ride football scholarship there, and really full of myself, thinking I'm a pretty big badass, and lots of identity wrapped around it. And as I'm going through business school and some business marketing communications kind of stuff, I had this vision of myself being, and I'll never forget it. The image that it sort of encapsulated where I was going with my professional career after college was me in a drop top BMW silver. I was really, really clear. I had it all in my head. Silver convertible BMW cruising down Highway 1 from my office in San Francisco down to Santa Cruz. Like that was it. It was like, I am destined to be in the corner office being an executive badass, just like I'm a badass on this football field, right? So ego driven. And so you'll see there's probably some career choices along the way that also feel ego driven, but I'm going to assure you that it's a little different. It's a little bit more along the lines of following your bliss. And so I'm destined. I think I'm in my senior year, and I'm destined for this next, professionalism. And I go into this organizational communications class. And Karli, you probably know the story. You have your own version of this story. Everybody does. There's this, University of Montana is an Ivy League, let's be honest. And so there's some teachers in there that should have been retired like 30 years ago, right? Just terrible. And then there were some who like rock your world, right? And this organizational communications teacher had us read this book, Executive Blues, Down and Out in Corporate America, and write an essay about how it impacts it. I have no idea how it has anything to do with organizational communications. I think what the professor was doing was saying, check yourself. Like you're at this stage of your business school. What does a successful career look like? And are you building castles in the sky on a concept that may not be accurate? So it's this heart-wrenching story of this guy who dedicated, just like my dad did, 40 years of his life into this corporation that ultimately saw this guy who's aged and getting paid a ton, and there's way cheaper labor who will do the same thing, maybe faster and better for a third of the cost, right? And so the whole cement foundation, rather, that he had stacked his identity around was yanked. And I had the same thing happen my senior year of football. It was like I injured myself 3 times in 3 months. Knee was torn, all this stuff, right? And I was going through the same identity crisis of like, oh, I've been building this castle in the sky. So it forced me to do some soul searching and ask myself, what do I want? What do I actually want deep down? And my answer to that, Karli, you'll love this. My answer to that was to go live in the woods. I 1000%, having not even read Thoreau, I wanted Thoreau's Walden Pond. And of course, I have a left brain. So like I was raised with very left brain oriented parents. And so the voices in the head said, good God, man, there's zero practicality in that. Like, come on, man, but it wouldn't stop. It wouldn't stop like whispering in my ear. Like, I want to go live in the woods. I want to go find and I think what it symbolized for me, Karli, is that I want to be quiet with my own heart and listen to nature and listen to the muse and allow my own heart's desire to come forth, right? Instead of these things that are sort of crumbling around me, these castles, correct? So I started doing whatever I knew how to do, which was I thought, well, I'm just going to go be a model. I'm going to go be a model. I'm going to get in my car and go down to San Francisco, and I'm going to go be a model because, I don't know, some people say I have a pretty face. So I'm just going to go make money doing that and figure out what my bliss is. And so I printed out, did some pictures, and I sent them down to 100 agencies down in California. And one of them reached back out and said, a couple of them reached out back out and said, hey, you look interesting. Come on down to San Francisco and we'll see
what everyone wants to hear about their headshot is you look interesting. Come on down.
But if you can bear with my, I don't even know if I can. My chief people officer would say, absolutely not. You're not sharing the photos from this, but I have the photos. And
okay, obviously, like you have to. We all are dying to know now.
They're ridiculous, Karli. But no slam on the modeling industry, but it's just fucking vanity, right? So I did that. I hopped in my car, still chat with one of my buddies. One of my teammates got picked up by the 49ers. And so he's in Santa Clarita in training camp. And I got in the car and with a rice cooker and a suitcase. And I showed up and they were putting him up in a hotel. And I was like, dude, can I stay with you? And I ended up drive into the city and go explore this modeling career, and lots of fun, juicy stories within that. But what it did is got me started on a trajectory that it was completely impractical. I was living on, I think my grandparents gave me like $500 for my college graduation gift. And that was it. That's all I had. And I was like, sleeping on couches, offering to sweep floors for people who were lusty eyeing me, and just like squirming my way through this until someone said, I was at some show and somebody said, hey, you gotta get down to LA. Like, that's where it's at, actually. So at this stage, all I've done is just followed my bliss. I've listened within enough to know that there's something here that I want to go explore. And what happens is when you get to that next barrel, you see on the other side of the horizon, oh, there's another barrel that will help me get to whatever's next. But I couldn't have seen that from the previous barrel, right? This is the whole crossing the Saharan desert story. I learned from Jack Canfield, right? Like, so when you're starting that journey, there's no signpost, there's no guidepost saying, oh, just follow this road. There's no road. All you see is a barrel at the end of at the horizon, just glimmering through the glimmers of heat. And you go, okay, well, that's where we're going. And then what? And you don't know until you get to that barrel, right? And so that's all I could do, right? And so my takeaway from this principle, before we get into the next part of the story, is to listen to your heart more than your mind. And what I know, Karli, is that your mind is really crowded with all the pragmatic ideas, and all the stories that you've learned as a kid, and you've heard from your parents, and you've heard from the horror stories of, people who, hippies that follow their bliss are the ones who are broke and homeless and on the side of the streets asking you for money because they can't afford food. Like, you name it, you've heard the stories that say that's just not possible. Karli, do you have anything to?
Yeah, for sure. I like the point that you're driving home in this principle is that our deepest, truest desires are often completely illogical in terms of like they don't make logical sense to our minds, because your mind will undercut anything you really, really, truly want to do. It's like, I want to start this music career, but it's like, well, you don't really know anything about music. Or like, I want to, make my multisensory talents, like my psychic abilities, my job, right? And it's like, well, who are you to be able to do that? Or who are you that people should trust you, right? Whatever it is, your mind will find a way to tell you that it's dumb and stupid, and you should probably just get like a regular job like everyone else. So, I mean, we've all had those moments where we're kind of battling mind versus heart, but I think it helps for people to know that, like, very often that deep desire of, for you, living in the woods, right? It doesn't make sense, and that's okay. It doesn't have to make sense to your mind.
What's crazy about it is now that I'm 17, I graduated college in 2001, but now that I'm here, what is that, 25 years later, 17 years of peaceful media later, I get to spend a good chunk of my day in the forest creating content that helps inspire other people to follow their bliss, right? So like, maybe that's just a cherry picking of an example, but I am in the forest. I am making my living by being in the forest and exploring that. So it's interesting how when you have the perspective of time and experience, that you look back and you go, oh yeah, okay, cool. There's the threads were there. The threads were totally there. So threads is another word for this, or another concept connected to this is skills. And that's my second principle. And that is started with the quote, "The world is but a canvas for your imagination," by Thoreau. And so I'll connect this to skills in a second here. What happened as I was in San Francisco, first of all, I needed to learn Photoshop in order to do my brochures to the modeling agencies, right? I learned Photoshop so that I could make my abs look better.
I mean, is that not why we're all learning Photoshop?
Right. I mean, yes, it all starts there. And so dorky. I'm like mildly embarrassed, but it's great. So that's where I started to learn Photoshop. And sure enough, when I'm down in San Francisco, I follow that cue from this guy who seems to know everything about the modeling agents, the modeling world. He says, "You got to get down to LA And then you can get acting gigs too. And I'm like, what? Cool. I don't know how to be an actor. I've never done acting. Well, third grade, I did a play. I was like Santa's left-hand man, like I'm pretty good at that elf stuff, but had never even thought about acting or Hollywood. And yet something said, go, just go see what happens. So once again, I drove up back to Portland where I grew up, reloaded at my parents' pantry, got some more rice, got a thing of ham this time. Like actually
Nice.
came prepared. I brought some protein, and I went down. Buddy's dad lived in North Hollywood, and I asked him if I could sleep on his couch for a month while I find a place. And sure enough, found a place. Found a studio that was subsidized by the government, and the kitchen sink was the bathroom, and it was just enough space, and I had just enough money, right? And so I could afford 1 month, and then it was just like, all right, I know nobody. I know nobody here. I have no connections whatsoever, and I'm gonna go be an actor. Classic Hollywood story. And but I put up a sheet of butcher block paper from the dollar store because it's the only place I could shop. Literally, Carly, I'm going to El Pollo Local to get the sauces. Like, like, I hope nobody notices this, but I'm just going in and scooping up little containers of sauces to put on my rice. Because that's literally all I can do.
Yeah.
I'm signing up. I'll get back to the butcher block. I'm signing up to become a marketing and promotions person who basically goes out to festivals or carnivals and music shows and stuff like that and hands out free stuff.
Yeah.
And whatever, I would specifically choose the ones that had food because that was how I was eating, right? Like zero money. And so I put up this, I knew that in order to be successful, I knew just enough to know that if I was going to be successful here, I needed to know people. And so I put up butcher block paper across my entire studio's walls and wrote 1,000 people I've met. And every day I forced myself, I'm an introvert, if you'll believe me on that. I'm a total introvert. I don't, going up to people and networking and shaking hands and stuff is totally exciting to me. Today, I'm going to meet 3 people. I'm going to write their names every day. I'm going to write 3 names up here, where I met them and what their name was, so that I force myself to build that muscle. So there's a skill, right? Stacking skills. In the meantime, I got a job at a restaurant, but I also got a job at a production studio. And just a production assistant doing total BS job. And it was horrible. It was a terrible, terrible job, terrible company. I won't name the name of the company, but total B movie kind of stuff. And so I would I would spend as much time as possible in Photoshop more. Coming back to Photoshop and screenwriting. So I got to know the screenwriter there, who was also miserable writing horrible B movie scripts and dreaming of actually doing something worthy of his time someday. And so he and I would chit chat, and I started writing screenplays. And then in the free time, I would download all their software so that I could learn how to do video stuff, and I could learn how to do photoshopping. And I started creating a comic strip called The Adventures of Bunny Love, and got really, really invested into it. I'll show you one of them. I also built a website because I had a modeling, side of me and this acting side. So I needed a website. So I built a website for myself, and it was called millertainment.com. And I would post my comic strip, and I would post my beautiful abs all over the place.
That you had photoshopped perfectly.
Oh my God, they were gorgeous. So gorgeous. Just strutting my stuff. Okay. Again, I apologize for all the vanity. But so my comic strip, The Adventures of Bunny Wub, this is like one of the first ones. There's a whole series, but really exploring the things, the currents within me, my dichotomy of like, God, I feel like a beast deep down, nutria man, but I'm also like a man, and I have feelings, and so some part of me is not being fully expressed. So it was like this beautiful little outlet for my Photoshop skills to grow. And what happened here is that while I'm building up my career in acting and starting to get some gigs, got representation, sure enough, met about 200 of those lines in on my butcher block paper. I met the entertainment attorney for Jack Nicholson and Mick Jagger, and asked him to mentor me, and I mentored him in the gym. We were, I'd help him work out. He would help me build my career. I got representation from Jack Nicholson's agent, Sandy Bressler, and eventually started stacking some income coming through from acting, getting commercials, doing theater, and but in the meantime, I'm making films. I'm making little films. I'm writing screenplays. I'm getting excited about this stuff. I'm like buying a camera, and at this point, my buddy Matt calls me, who you met, Karli, because he came back around to do a lunch and learn. This was kind of what all inspired this session. So I'm going to pause right there because I know we are actually diving into one of Peaceful Media's lunch and learns in just a few minutes, and I'll share what Matt asked me to join, and that leveraged the skills that I was stacking. So we'll come right back after this break. All right. Okay, welcome back. So continuity is a nice to have in our world. We are now 2 days removed from our Wellbeing Wednesday session, and I do recommend. We'll put a little note up here wherever that lands in the YouTube space. Put a little note to it so you can go watch that. I think it was, Karli, I'd love to get your take on it. It was I think a really cool process for designing the life you really want to be living.
Yeah. Very intentional around like this idea of like attracts like, kind of, if we're talking in like the greater sphere, right? So what do you want more of? What do you want to call in? You want like to be like, and then what do you want to repel is how I like to think of it. Like what is not for you, and you want to just like push it away with your energy, and being intentional around that is important.
Yeah. It's kind of like if your body or your vibration is a house, right? Your energy is a house, and you get to decide where the doors are open and where the doors are closed. Boundary setting, and just, getting into the vibration and manifesting all that you would like to see in your life. This process that you'll see in the Wellbeing Wednesday can certainly help get that flow going. I've noticed that in my life dramatically lately. All right. So we left off where I'm stacking skills in Los Angeles, with the photoshopping and film writing, screenwriting, and a little filmmaking, and acting, and doing some theater and so forth. And it was right to the point, Karli, you just reminded me, where my buddy is putting it lightly. We've been like this since third grade. It's just like one of the closest human beings in my life, one of the most intimate relationships I have in my life. Just the amount of stuff we've been through together, highs and lows. And so when he called and said, I want to invite you on my team. I have this dream. As you know, I've been out there. Like I might have mentioned this to you a while ago. I've been interviewing my grandparents to capture their love story, because growing up in a pretty broken home and seeing most of my aunts and uncles get divorced, and just feeling the impact of that. And then seeing that in contrast to see my grandparents who've been married for 65 years, holding hands and still madly in love. I mean, I've been inspired to write down their story, and so that I can reprogram what's possible within my brain, so that I'm not sort of relegated to the story that lifelong love isn't possible, right? And so it was a beautiful, inspired dream that he had to capture that love story and talk to other lifelong love stories owners, like, basically our grandparents, people who've been married at least 40 years and are still excited to be with each other and see each other. And Karli, my honest reaction, being a single 24-year-old in Hollywood, like the epicenter of salaciousness and just I really don't think of it as like the vibes of lifelong marriage and chatting with your grandparents. But and so I'm kind of in that world, right? And I'm single, and I'm loving being single, and really have no intentions over the next, whatever years to get into a lifelong committed monogamous relationship. And so my initial reaction was like, I think it's really like, there's something in my heart that loves the kernel of this. And I'm like, I don't know how much like personal excitement I have, but I love you, Matt, and I love the projects we've done and this, the history we have, and anything to be in cahoots with you, I'm in. And immediately thereafter, I said, look, man, one of the things I'm really passionate about is filmmaking. And I think about when Harry met Sally, those touching little vignettes, of like these people, and I think they were dramatized, but they felt real. And I think there's a documentary film here. I think if we, instead of just going in and tape recording folks telling their love stories, we could have something here. And so he agreed to that. And I went out and bought a nice camera, and I was like, yeah, I'm a real filmmaker now. And we started just driving around in my car, just like driving door to door, knocking on, oh, we got a referral from so-and-so that you have a great marriage, and we'd love to document that. And we pull in our cameras and lights and sound, and here's this poor couple who'd never met us, just revealing everything, their hardships, their traumas, the principles that have made them successful in their marriage. And so we started to get a little bit of traction. Like we're like 10 maybe love stories in, 10 marriages and couples in. And so we decided, okay, we're at this point where we started getting a little bit of media. Like we went to somebody I knew up here in Portland who was an anchor at a local station, and she came and did a story of us, and filmed us like, recording a love story with a couple. And we took that little piece on the news and turned it into a promo video that helped people believe that there was a movement starting, right? Help ourselves believe that there is a movement starting. We cut up a little promo video as we were starting to document and starting to create a book proposal. To tie this back to skill stacking, we started to write our book proposal. So all of the writing skills that I was working on, and the design skills of making these beautiful book covers and putting them on top of book spines, so that, when we're handing off our proposals, they can imagine this book cover on their publisher shelves. And there's a whole story of building media kit and building some momentum, and eventually getting to the place where we land a spot on the Today Show, and where we were struggling to find couples to, let us into their doors and document their stories. We suddenly had thousands of people all across the country offering their love stories, and it helped us manifest. It springboarded us into traveling around the entire country in a sponsored RV with sponsored flights, sponsored hotels, sponsored 1-800-Flowers, sponsored this and that to help make this thing happen with a film crew. And what came of it is the book Project Everlasting. And it was post Project Everlasting where we're out there speaking, we're going to Hallmark and sharing the story and inspiring them, like just kind of traveling around the world. And I was really, really excited about the momentum that was going on with all this skill stacking and success with getting a Simon & Schuster publishing us. Like we had like 6 or 7 publishers bidding on this book proposal.
That's the dream.
Right? Yeah.
Is like, that's the dream, right?
We're like at this point, we're like 27, never been published, 25 or whatever. And had been turned down by agents, had been told our book proposal was total crap. And eventually finding our way to William Morris, now William Morris Endeavor, where they're like, no, this isn't just a book, guys. This is yes, we want the book. We want the documentary film. We're going to plug you in with Bune and Murray for a reality show. Like this is an empire, you guys. And we're like, somebody gets it. Somebody gets it. After so many, no, this will never fly. So 2 bachelors discover the secrets of America's greatest marriages. Ultimately landed on every major bookstore and bookshelf, and had some mild success. We went on the Today Show again and told the story after the tour, and with the book published and ready for purchase, and then Oprah Radio and all this stuff. And it just, for me, it comes back to that is not something that you prepare for overnight, right? We talk about the world is but a canvas for your imagination, that quote by Thoreau. Both of us had been developing the skills that helped make that even remotely possible, but we've been simply following what we were passionate about doing and not getting paid to do in the first place, right?
Right.
And so if you can put yourself in that state of doing whatever it takes to do the practical, to keep the bank accounts from going, in the negative, getting your rent paid, getting your utilities paid, but also allowing the dreamy part of you, the dreamer within you, continue to explore and develop those skills, then I can tell you from experience that those will pay off. Those will pay off. And then sometimes incredibly, like they look like magic, right? When we were talking to Hilton Hotels about a multi-million-dollar sponsorship deal where they were going to be putting our book and film in it was called the Romance Project Everlasting Romance Package, where if you were going to the Hilton, you'd be able to see these, different packages that you could buy. One was like a sports thing. Well, one was romance, a bottle of champagne, a couple glasses, and our book and film sitting there on the table. It's like, it's like, what the hell? So I'm just telling you, keep stacking those skills. Keep doing, courageously stacking them so that you can ultimately be ready for those moments of pure opportunity that come your way. Karli, I know you're publishing soon, right? You just finished your manuscript, you're editing it right now.
Publishing
What's
soon, I don't know is
yeah.
how I describe it, but like on the journey. But yeah, and like I always joke with my husband, I'm like, if a single other person enjoys this book, reading it as much as I've enjoyed and like laughed my ass off writing it, then I will be totally fulfilled. Like I just need like I probably don't even need one person, but like it just goes to show you what you're talking about, which is like this process has been pure joy, like not that there haven't been hard moments, right? I haven't, like we are kind of like skimming over the top, right? Of like when the band breaks down, or like when you were like
Yeah. Oh
rethinking
my
the
god.
same scene over and over, or like you wrote something that you love and then you find like, oh, it doesn't actually fit, so I got to take it out. Or skimming over those parts. But like ultimately, most of the process feels like joy. And there's this Jonathan Franzen quote that I think like kind of fits into this a little bit too. And I'm paraphrasing here, but it was essentially like, if you're having fun writing it, it's probably pretty good. And if you're not, it's probably not very good. And like sometimes it really is that simple. Like, are you having fun creating it? Then it's probably, not to say that it's going to immediately find its place and make you $1 million, but it's probably good and it's probably going to connect with someone. But if it's a drag the whole time, it's like, well, a lot of people live in a 9 to 5 job that's already a drag. So you don't want your art to be a drag too. Like you got to find the thing that like lights you up. And what I love about the story that you shared is like, at first you're like, I don't know if I'm the guy for this project, but like there was something that like drew you to it. And then it sounds like, overall you guys kind of had the time of your life doing it when it came right
Yeah.
down to it.
Yeah. I should put a little punctuation mark on the whole thing. And since you mentioned my state of being and my state of relationships and my relationship with relationships at the start, it also had its own beautiful arc, in that, we did produce a feature length documentary film, and there's lots of sort of poignant moments within there in the book where it was just I felt their wisdom and their love and like what's possible, and it's starting to seep into my heart, right? And really explored that to the point where my heart opened up to my eventual wife, Megan. And Matt was the one that officiated our wedding, you know? And,
Who
and so
else?
there's this beautiful full circle moment, there at the very end of Project Everlasting, my bachelor word, as we call it. I wrote just a whole note to myself about how that process of melting the stone down to that suppleness and willingness to engage in as um, complexity, complex relationship, interrelational dynamics. And so anyways, I'm getting off track a little bit, but it was a really neat story, and I think it tees up the next stage of this, in this linear story of how we got to peaceful media. And this third phase builds off of what we just talked about, because I do not believe that it's enough to passionately stack your skills in the closet. Right? And Karli, you and I talk about this a lot. There is, so I'm going to start with a quote and we'll get into that. So it's from Jim Carrey, who, by the way, man, you just tap into some Jim Carrey on YouTube. And yeah, these are my Jim, if you can ever join our podcast, I'd love to have you, bro. You've made such an impact on my life. And in more ways than Dumb and Dumber comedic relief. So his quote is, "The effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is." And how this connects. I, post Project Everlasting, I bought on a whim. I bought a home overlooking the Puget Sound, and had no real business buying this home, financially speaking. I had one great year from Project Everlasting where I thought I was super cool and going to be doing more years like that. Just firmly believed it. And it was 2008.
Good year.
Right at the
Good year
right,
for
right
home
at the
buying, as
beginning.
people know.
Right. Yeah. The ultimate zone of the mortgage finance industry's greed. And it was just stated income. I'm going through buying a home right now, and the process of the scrutiny that you go through to get lending and financing right now compared to what I did when I was 30 years old, walking into a broker. I fill out this like a DMV form. It's like one or two pages of like, what was your income? Oh, I made $100,000 last year. I got this, right? And they're like, cool. All right. Well,
you probably do. You're right.
Yeah. They didn't ask what my income was before. I was like, starving actor making money off of little commercial residuals. And it didn't really matter to them. It was like, what you made last year and what you put on this paper is enough for us. And here's your $500,000 loan for this home that is completely impractical. And so I got into that home, and for the first 2 or 3 months, I was like, oh yeah, total bliss. I was setting up my commune on Orcas Island, having all these people come in and live with me. And it was just awesome. I was biking around and in the woods and just spending most of my time like floating around in a lake and looking at starfish from these beautiful retreat spaces. I was just like, oh yeah, this is it. I'm living my dream, and the next book is just going to come springing forth for me, and it's going to be my Walden Pond. And yeah, within 2.5 months of trying to ferry my way over to an airport so that I could do these speaking gigs that were starting to decline through Project Everlasting, and kind of going through some failures of like, we launched a radio show called The Bachelor Pad, that we paid to have the radio show. There wasn't like podcast stuff like this back then. And so it was kind of like a negative $10,000 of ROI, and ultimately got to the place where I started realizing like my money is drying up, and everybody who told me this is a completely impractical idea to buy this home and go live on Orcas Island was starting to creep in real hard into my brain, to the point where I was on the floor just sobbing, and my parents come up and to camp and see me and this stuff, and they walk in and they're just like, holy shit, like, you're not in a good place. I was really, really not in a good place. The financial anxiety just consumed me. And it was in that state of anxiety that I went to the guy who built my home and said, hey man, I'm really I'm really struggling. I've never worked in construction, but I'm a hard worker. And do you have any jobs? He's like, yeah, man, like, I paid $25 an hour to come and pound nails. And I was like, oh, hell yes. Yes. And then this is where it comes to that courageously expressing your passion to as many people as who will listen. Because I can tell you right now that swinging hammers is nice. I enjoy it. There's some Zen Buddhism in it, but it is not my passion. What is my passion was all the things I was doing in Project Everlasting, building and maintaining our website, setting up the marketing email systems, writing proposals, doing media kits, going out and speaking, and doing branding, essentially branding and online marketing. And so on a whim, it was a total PS, Karli. I said, cool, man, I would love to come in and swing hammers. Oh, or do you know anybody who could like use a website or a brand or anything, marketing stuff, postcards? And he looks at me, he's like, oh yeah, man, I've been looking for, I actually really need that stuff, all of that. And I was like, okay, cool. Let me get you a proposal. And so I scrambled downstairs to the desk and I built this like, what I felt like it was a huge proposal for like $5,000 for everything. It was a full kit, your brand, your magnets, your postcards, your brochures, your website. By the way, I had never started a website on my own. I just maintained the one that we had my brother make me. So I'm like, I can do all this and I'll deliver it within 30 days. I spent the first 21 days of that researching how to build a website from scratch.
Yeah. You got to put in that time first, obviously.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, what my brother did was really nifty, and I have no idea how to like
I'm
set
sure
up
it's
a domain.
easy though. Like that's what I love. It's like, how hard could it be? My brother.
Oh yeah, there was no Squarespace back then, folks. There was no WordPress, not in my peripheral. It was like HTML. Set up your own server,
like Angel Fire.
Yeah. And I'm like, I gotta make this website. And I have no idea how to start. And so scrambled, but I loved it. I was like, holy shit, this is so exciting to me. And I would go and stay up all night. And he's like, at 3 weeks into this timeline, he's like, hey man, how's it coming along? And at that point, I delivered a few brand samples and logo samples and stuff and got that part going. But how's the website coming along, Jay? And I was like, oh man, yeah, just crank it along. I'll have something for you to review. And I'll never forget, I'm like the day before it's all due. It's like big crux here. I've been building the site, and for any of you developers who are listening to this, any real developers who were back in building websites back in 2008, 2009, you'll know what I mean by this. So I'd been building the website in Firefox. And Firefox is super developer friendly. And I sent this prototype. I was like, I'm on time. I sent the website over to the builder, and he's like, hey man, I just pulled it up and oh man, it looks pretty broken. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? He's like, I don't know. I'm using Internet Explorer, and there's this Internet Explorer called IE6. It was a browser that, if you were in any developer forum back then, it is the Bane from Batman. It is the Bane. It's like the devil. It's the devil browser. Okay.
Yeah.
It does demonic things. It plays by no rules. It's like its own thing. And everybody who was like not on the cutting edge of browsers just had this IE6. It's called IE6 by default on their computers. If you were running a PC, you had IE6 as your browser. And there's IE7 was out, but that means people would have to update their browser. So they're all running IE6, and it just clobbered the site. So the next 24 hours was just pure agony, trying to figure out how in the hell to get the site to render correctly in IE6. But to circle back to this principle, if you can stack all those skills you want, if you don't go and have enough courage to just say, like, this is something I'm passionate about. This is something I'm excited about. This is something I can contribute to you or society. Then I think you leave like 99% of the possibilities dormant, right? And on the side of the road. And Karli, I'm going to pass it over to you to see if this sparks anything for you before we go on to the fourth principle.
Yeah, just this idea of like, you can't really create in a vacuum and then like expect anything to come from it. We talked about this a little bit the other day of just like every masterpiece that you have, right, begins in your mind. And then it's like you have to actually kind of like shake it out onto the page or the browser or whatever it is. And like a lot of times it doesn't look exactly the same. Like I would say most of the time it's not like exactly the same once you've actually created it. So it's this idea of like, if you let that, like the beauty of the vision, stop you from actually going out there and doing the thing, then you've already lost the battle, right? So, like, like creative expression, whatever it looks like, in your case, building this website, right? It's like you got to take it out of the lab and just like into the world. And that requires so much bravery. And I think we don't give enough credit to people who were brave enough to put their stuff out in the world. Because, like, I think about movies, right? You know, and like things that get like really panned or whatever. And like a lot of times it's like, okay, maybe there are flaws with like the script or there are flaws with the acting or execution, right? But like the bravery it takes to like put something out there, especially if you're brand new or trying something new, or it's like we want to like take things down a peg sometimes without really thinking about like how hard it is to just be courageous with what you're doing, because it's so much easier to hold yourself back and stay in your lane and like not do the big dreamy things for fear that somebody is gonna like dislike it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of some
Yeah.
tangential things, but like that's what comes to mind when you talk
Sure.
about it. It's like, you're talking about stacking skills, but then eventually you have to fucking use them and you have to like show other humans, like you have to put it out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's a thread that I don't know if I totally nailed that I had hoped to get across in that section. I'm just kind of realizing that is that the reason I started with that quote from Jim Carrey, the effect you have on other people is the most valuable currency there is that I truly believe that when we're in that zone of passion and zone of bliss, the things we talked about in the first principle, when you express that to others, you cannot help but ignite some new possibilities in your life. I truly believe that manifestation is not an individual, independent, sort of process. To me, or at least it's not you utilizing the full possibility of allowing the world, the universe, to sort of support this dream that you're trying to achieve. And so that builder doesn't listen to me or doesn't take me seriously if I don't express to him my earnest passion for this thing that I'm offering, right? And I think that has been one of the through lines of any success that I've been able to achieve with Peaceful Media or Project Everlasting is, how am I showing up? What is my vibration? And am I doing things? Is my lifestyle conducive to keeping me in that energetic vibration? Right? And if I'm doing things that I fucking hate doing, then of course, like the frequency is so low, and I'm going to attract people who have the same frequency and repel the people who have the frequency that I want in my life. And I just find it like black belt level self-mastery to expect yourself to commit 8, 10, 12 hours of your waking day to things that you hate, and then go manifest anything beautiful and powerful and magical. Did I connect the dots there, Karli?
Yeah, for sure. And like I think that what you're talking about too is like a good gauge of whether or not you are like having that effect on people, right? Like if you're doing something that you're truly passionate about, you will impact people in a way that they'll be drawn in and excited by your excitement. But if you're doing something that you're not that thrilled about, you might just like try telling it to someone else, and you'll notice that like they're not that interested because you're not that interested. I'll
Yeah.
give you a personal example, right?
Yes,
So a
please.
lot of what I've written previously is about agriculture, and specifically agricultural robotics, right? Robots used in agriculture. I've written 700,000 articles on agrobotics. So many, right?
Seriously? Okay. Is that like in the range of literal figures?
No, it's an
Okay.
exaggeration, but that's what it's felt like because it's not my
So it's like,
passion, but I've written about it so much for years, right? Like I've written about it a lot for years. And like I very much respect the agricultural industry. Like I love, like robots are very necessary. Like all of this is important work, but it's not my passion. So if I'm telling somebody about like what I write about a lot, you know, and I'm telling them about agrobotics, right? It's like I can just kind of see like their mind is probably wandering a little bit because like I'm not that excited. They're not excited. Like they're being nice.
yes.
Right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
being nice.
Well,
But they don't have a lot
your
of
grace.
follow-up questions, right? Like there are zero follow-up questions. I've like completely killed this conversation, right? But if I tell them about like my newsletter or my book or the things that I'm writing about, like I can tell, like people are like, oh, that's really cool. And like, they're excited
Yeah.
too. Like, tell me more. Like, tell me about like the kind of mechanics of like the
Yeah.
magical realism that you're talking about, right? Like, then it's like, that's what gives me more confidence that what I'm doing is the right thing, is that like other people are like vibing with it too. And like other people are now just as excited as I am. So it's like they're very extremes. Like, so should I be writing about agrobotics like all the time? No, I'm not the person to be writing about that. And like I eventually kind of let that job go just this last year. But it does require that leap of faith and that courage because like I have to say no to income in order to do something that is like currently unpaid, but like
Right.
gets me so excited. So yeah, it's a mixed bag on some ways, but I just feel like sometimes people are like, I don't know if this is my passion. It's like, well, talk about it to other people and see what happens. Like they're gonna let you know. And like if they're your friends and family, like hopefully in the nicest way possible, but they're gonna let you know if that's like your passion or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm listening to you while I'm also trying to put a picture in the album I want to share with you on screen. So sorry if I look a little off to the side here. Shall we do a plug, an unsolicited plug for AG1?
Here it is.
Well, while I'm so my friend runs an influencer agency, and you know AG1 is constantly working with influencers. I am a non-influencer influencer for AG1, and AG1, if you want to send us some more of this good green stuff and more of your zines, actually, Karli,
Yeah.
here, let's connect some dots here real quick before we get into the screen
Their zine
share.
is the inspiration, right? Like that's what got
Yes.
me thinking, right?
So at the beginning of this episode, we talked about how we're developing a zine, talking about how do you be human? How do you, especially like the marketing, like how do you bring the humanity to the digital age of marketing, where most of our stuff is sending pixels around the web, right? And
working with influencers, right? Like there's a place for it too.
Yeah. And for the most part, ignoring the power of the tangible thing in your hands that's connected to your brand's mission. And so AG1, I got your zine. I think it was the inaugural zine, and I treasured it. I can't, like, I wish I had it in my hands. I gave it to our creative director, Gabe, and I said, Gabe, like, this lands for me. This is the type of marketing or just brand awareness that I want to do for Peaceful Media. And it's been like a year of stop and starts, but this is 2025 is the year where our zine finally emerges. I don't think we have a name for it, do we, Karli?
Not currently.
Okay. And Karli and Gabe are responsible. They're the ones directing that project. And so that'll be coming forth soon. But I want you to know, AG1, that not only did your zine inspire our zine, But also this drink, I consume it every morning. My wife consumes it every morning. It is her way of getting her greens because she refuses to eat my kale salads. And so thank you for a great product that does have a very, very clean ingredients list. I have some friends in my life who are extremely scrupulous about the ingredients that they can allow into their bodies. And they really scrutinized the back of your package and said, "Oh, like this is surprisingly clean." Like normally you do not see this in these quote unquote good for you great drinks. So good job, AG1. All right. In the future episode, we'll talk about what's in my coffee mug. We can only do so many brand sponsorships. So.
Before we get back to our regularly scheduled program.
Yes. Yes. Oh, why is it so difficult to add this to my photo album? Here, I'll share my screen and we'll kind of clunkily go through this. Because this still connects to that, what I just said about the vibration. Well, we don't. So it started with humbly doing, that $5,000 all meal, full meal deal branded website project for a builder. And, flash forward to say 2014, probably 2012, 2013. My old classmate from the University of Montana, Brendon Burchard, and I kept running into each other in the book marketing, just kind of full circle this, in the book marketing and book speaking and the whole thought leadership, conference world that we were in. We actually, this is an unbelievable story for me that it tickles me so much. So we go to a Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield sort of sponsor, like Chicken Soup for the Soul book marketing conference that happens every year. And Matt and I, invested money that we didn't have. We go to this event. We're out there networking. We're learning how to build a platform around your book and really think about the books as marketing assets. And there's this guy running around the halls who has the energy of 8 volcanoes and also like the peace and sort of groundedness also of and wisdom of someone that's, well beyond his years and just a super bright human being. Like Matt is really bright. And then there's like the Brendon Burchard light is up there too. Like it just, you feel it and see it from across an entire conference expanse. And we kept bumping into him and kind of sharing stories. And he was a little bit ahead of us. He was building partnerships with Rotary clubs and he's a super fast riser at Accenture. He's on like partnership track at Accenture in San Francisco and just balling, it's clearly like using his bright light to impact the world. And he was working on his first book called his first major publishing book called Life's Golden Ticket. And he was working through the manuscript and everything. It was anyways, I won't go into what the book is, but we're working on Project Everlasting. He's working on Life's Golden Ticket. And then, we would go to these conferences. And then 2 years later, Mark Victor Hansen reaches out to us and says, "Hey, you guys are, publishing this year. We'd love to have you up on stage to share your story." And so we go to the one in LA. It's 2 years later. And just so happens, Brendon and us are both getting up to share our success stories, like how we used the principles we learned here, to go out and get your book publishing deal of your dreams, right? And it was there that we realized that we were in a circle of like dream achievers, like we aren't coming to conferences and blowing smoke up our asses. We're here to like do this thing. And I think it was there that we formed a real relationship with Brendon And I offered him, to come freely and like shoot when we were in San Francisco, to come and shoot his promo video for Life's Golden Ticket. Right? Going back to the filmmaking, stacking skills. Brendon had never shot a video. This is hard for a lot of people to believe, because Brendon is prolific on video now. Like, if you think of Brendon, you're probably thinking of watching his YouTube videos or his Instagrams or whatever. And that first, we were in his crowded apartment in San Francisco, where there's no room to set up lights. There's really no room to set up a tripod for the camera. It was like one of those apartments. And he talks about this in his speeches, like just struggling to make this dream work. And we're using his like nightstand lamps to light this thing, right? And he is sweating profusely. He is so uncomfortable. He is like, he's fumbling over the lines. He's scripted the whole thing, and he's just fumbling over the lines. And like, we're doing take after take after take after take to get this like 2-minute promo video. And I edited it, and I, tried to create something that was like similar to the Tuesdays with Maury author. Had this neat, like, creative way of doing like these 4 panes in one of his book promo videos. And I was like, I'm gonna do something cool like that with Brendon, because I certainly can't have like him just doing what he was doing. I need to like creatively pull in other frames to keep the momentum going, because it was kind of an awkward piece. And I sent it over to Brendon. He's like, dude, this is so cool. So cool. Thank you. It was like just all a give. And I don't think he ever used it, because he just didn't like the way he showed up.
Because it was lit with lamps and.
Yeah, it was really gross. It was really gross. It was not our finest. It was not an award-winning piece, but we tried our best. But nevertheless, a relationship really formed there, and he would invite me as he was building up what was called back then Experts Academy, where thousands of people from all over the world would come in and learn how to build a platform like he had. He would invite me to those, and I would readily show up, because I was like, oh my God, that's all my clients. That's like I can meet people and really build up my peaceful media business. And after like 3 or 4 years of that, I finally had the courage to go and again use the express my passion to Brendon around doing brands and websites. And he was at the stage in his career where he was like, I'm all in on DIY. If I can't do it, then I'm missing out on opportunities for growth, and I'm missing out on opportunities to be as agile as I need to be with my launches. And so, which was beautiful, is something he espoused, and it was like a principle of his success that he would teach others. And it meant that he, from 11 a.m. to 3 a.m., 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. in the morning, he's coding his own HTML websites on Yahoo, and doing the thing that you had tried to learn how to do in 2008. And it was the era where mobile devices were coming on, and the site looked awful. Like all Tables websites just got totally bjorked when mobile devices came around, because it just didn't respond. And so he was like, man, I was like, dude, I have a package for you. I want to do your website. I want to get my team. I built a little team to rebrand you and build a website for you. And he said, yeah. And so we did Brendon. Back then it was BrendonBurchard.com. Now it's Brendon.com. And what happened from there is that everybody who saw that website in his sphere came out of the woodwork and said, Joe Polish, Jeff Walker, Frank Kern, all of these folks Dr. Mark Hyman. I mean, it's just like these crazy, crazy successful thought leaders were coming out and saying, like, I want to work with you guys. And it got to be such a flood that we're like, I went back to Brendon. I'm like, dude, he's like, it was a collaboration on this idea, of course, but like, he's like, dude, I think we need to like do something in, like a bigger setting. We need to do something like for multiple people. Can you build a template that's like mine that helps people get their marketing websites done well and launched fairly quickly? And I was like, hell yes, I can. And so the idea for Elevate Your Brand was born. And am I sharing my screen? Yeah. We brought in 30 people in our entire team into San Diego and co-led this beautiful event called Elevate Your Brand, where we delivered that promise of, from start to scratch, your entire marketing platform is done within a week. Now, of course, there's prep, and we train people and prep people, and so they're bringing all the materials. But we did it the peaceful media way. Every tabletop had our mission: love more, play more, do more good. Quotes from Rumi: as you enter positions of trust and power, dream a little, think. What does that say? Think. No, that's Toni Morrison. And dream a little, and power. Dream a little before you think. Ooh, that sings for me. Succulents everywhere. Oh, here's a good one. Rumi: let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It won't lead you astray. How apropos, huh? And so we host this event, and we launch. We bring everybody together. Happy dancing throughout the week. Yoga. Karli, this is going to be the art. We're actually we're bringing this back in a different flavor, but all of these components of infusing people who are trying to brighten and shine their light throughout the world to uplift humanity and heal the planet is bringing them together in space for an intimate opportunity to, excel, elevate your brand, automate your revenue, and expand your engagement. All the things that we do at Peaceful Media. So Karli, before I jump, there's a total aside, but I feel like it connected a lot of dots, and it also helps us see what's in the near future in 2025 as we start talking about a couple of events coming up.
Yeah. And one of the things I wanted to say as you were talking, it's like, there's something beautiful about being in your DIY era that Brendon was in before you kind of helped him, which was like, he was skill stacking during that time. So like,
yes.
He was in like principle 2 as like, you're helping him move into principle 3, because there is something to like being able to know at least the basis of how to do all these things, because then you can determine what we're talking about, which is what's for you and what's for someone else. Where can you like offload something that isn't actually your passion into somebody for whom it is their passion.
Yes, exactly.
That's how we collaborate effectively, right? We're all doing our zones of genius. We're all in our zones of passion. And, we recognize that like not everything is our passion, even if we have like the skills to do it.
So what the audience may not understand is that Karli is an amazing yoga teacher, or yoga instructor. What do you call it, Karli?
I usually say yoga instructor, but yeah, I have like over 700 hours of training. That's actually not an exaggeration.
So while we're looking at this picture, what is this move, and how would you grade that flexibility?
Well, it's a hip opener. People sometimes call it runner's lunge. I like to call it like lizard lunge, because you're like rolling to the outer edge of your foot. But it's a good one. It's like external rotation of the hip is the big one. And being able to get down on your forearms like that is pretty advanced for a lot of people. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next version of this event, where Karli will be an influential and very impactful on many different levels, member and leader of that program. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen before we get into the fourth one, because I want to pull up some photos that help connect the dots. I found, like I mentioned, I found a tasteful. This is actually the picture that I would send down to the modeling agencies. I told you I'd find the tasteful version. I think our HR department will let this one slide. The other ones were no go.
I mean, is this like with the photoshopped abs? Where are we on the Photoshop journey right now?
No, this is not photoshopped.
Nice work.
But I when I was taking my own photos without a professional, I was like, oh shit, like I don't know how to make it look like that. That looks really dramatic. That's really cool. I want to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
But media kits. I forgot to mention that Matt's grandma, who's like 92 years old, went on the entire journey with us.
So cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
From coast to coast and back around again. It is an entire loop of the entire nation with 15 stops. And there's the love story that inspired the whole thing. Here's something that happened a lot throughout the tour. And also happened a lot. And here's Brendon's Motivation Manifesto book. It was definitely crossed over with a lot of our work. And then the Elevate Your Brand. This is the one I wanted to incorporate into this next principle, which is the quote from Jim Rohn that you and I came up with, which is, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so we've listened to what the heart says more than the practical mind in many cases. That's the follow your bliss principle. We've talked about the stacking skills. Let's do these things that make you so happy that you don't even need to be paid for them. We've talked about the courageously expressing your passion to as many people who will listen. And that ultimately gets us to that Jim Rohn quote and the fourth principle. So the quote goes, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that's something I want to highlight as peaceful media today is at an unbelievably beautiful place in terms of who this agency has attracted and sort of organized and curated and developed, such that I know people talk about this when your workplace feels so enriching. I can't even express how full my heart is when I get to show up and be in relationship and do work with the people who've congregated here at Peaceful Media. And you can see it in this photo, right? The joy and the passion and also the exhilaration of achieving something incredibly difficult to do, producing an event and serving in that way with that many people. So this isn't the current team here at Peaceful Media, but that's been a through line of what Peaceful Media means, of just beautiful people who show up with their full selves, following their bliss and courageously expressing that passion with massively stacked skills and just doing the highest quality, most creative work possible. And Karli, you're a part of that.
Happy to be.
The way I distill that one is as a takeaway is to surround yourself with genuine people, first of all, who are doing the 3 things we just covered, right? Follow your bliss, stack happy dancing skills, and courageously express their passion. right? And when you do that, you have that what Jim Rohn is talking about, which is you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself most with. Well, you become all of that, right? And if you're surrounding yourself with people who are not in that high vibration, and if you're not running your own business, maybe you don't have the choice. But I think everyone has a choice on where they spend their time when it comes to their careers. And I just firmly believe in if you're going to spend that much time at something, you damn well better like the way you feel around the people that you're doing work with. Karli, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's work, it's friendships, it's like even family though. Of like sometimes people get caught up on this idea of like there are certain people that we have to spend time with, and I disagree with that. I feel like we don't actually have to do that if we don't want to. It might be hard to say, I don't want to see this person, or like, it doesn't have to be anything dramatic, but it's like we slowly pull our energy back. We slowly stop spending as much time with the people who don't end up energizing us at the end of our time together. And it's like, maybe you are not a person who pays super close attention to your energy. So it takes a little bit for you to like really understand who uplifts you, who is a good person for you versus who isn't. And I really don't like to think about it as like the people who aren't for you are somehow like bad people. They're just like not for you. They just don't uplift you. Maybe you don't uplift them. It's just not a good cohesive relationship. And like that's fine because there are other people for that person, right? And like some people just enjoy being in a lower vibration. They like to be around people who are very dramatic. They thrive on drama, and that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that, but it might not be for you, and you just have to know, who are the people who are going to give me what I want to be feeling all of the time, and how can I give that back to those people? And like eventually you draw on the right people and you repel the people you don't want, like we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. 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 So this whole episode of Marketing for What Matters started with the question, hey, I think we should tell the story of peaceful media because it's missing from our website and it's kind of missing from our brand messaging. And so I hope that for those of you who aren't necessarily interested in my modeling career, will put up with the fact that that's it's part of the journey in all the things we just talked about, and is a useful little springboard for something. There's something within me that feels like a little vulnerable about sharing so much of this journey when nobody's aside from you, Karli, has asked. If I'm being totally candid, like imagining the average Joe listening to this podcast and going, yeah, bro. Cool. Thanks for the story.
but I like it's not really about just like how like yes, the basis of it is like how peaceful media was born. And I think like it's funny, it's just like it was missing from the website because like no one asked. Meanwhile, I'm like looking at the website, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what's missing. Like obviously we have to know this. But
Yeah.
it was about so much more than that, right? Like so much of what we're talking about of like how to build a business or a something from like your deep passion and love and like just with a dream in mind is important for everyone, regardless of who you are or what you're trying to build, right? Because you don't have to be a business owner to connect to the idea of like surround yourself with good people, follow your passion, and like all these principles that like yeah sound kind of lofty if you're just thinking about them, but you've kind of gone through the down and dirty journey of that all and like where it ended up because of that, what I would call a continual trust that it was going to work out, as well as continuing to be courageous around the trust that it was going to work
Right.
out. So
With some
it's a
like
powerful message.
with some intermittent fetal positions and questioning,
Right.
you
Well,
know,
I don't think we would take it seriously if it all went perfectly from start to finish. That would be like,
yeah,
yeah, okay. I hate
yeah,
those stories.
those aren't really interesting stories, anyways.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, I'm excited for people to come check out the new About page that you and Gabe are working on, coming to a website, a web browser near you, as long as it's not IE6. And yeah, I've been thinking about the title for this episode, and realizing that this really expands beyond business building or brand building. Certainly, this is, for me, like, talk about like this superficial or pithy sayings like follow your bliss. Follow your bliss and watch the magic happen, or build the field of your dreams and watch people, watch them come. Is that even the saying from the movie? Build the field of dreams and they will come. Something
If
along
you
those
build
lines,
it,
right?
they will come. Yeah.
If you build it, they will come. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think
well, what you don't say, I think it's important to say, is like, if you build it, it doesn't mean they're going to come fast. like people want instant success.
Amen.
Like,
Right.
So keep that in mind. Like, if you build it,
Yes.
they'll come, but like maybe not tomorrow. Like,
Yes.
Yes.
But yeah, with the power of AG1 and
yeah, yes.
wait, Karli. With the power of AG1.
That's better. Yeah.
Really, all things are possible. What's nice,
next time
Karli,
like,
since
no ice.
yeah, no, I think that's all part of the experience.
Perfect.
Because I got to tell you, AG1 executives, if you're listening, it's not that great with lukewarm water. Like, ice is an essential component of that habit in the mornings, and making that something that I actually look forward to and enjoy. So yeah, it's kind of nice, Karli, being a non-influencer, in that, I know influencers have to follow a very tight script sometimes, and we
can tell because they're all the same.
We're just sharing our hearts. Okay, it's the best user-generated content you can have. Karli, this is the start of lots more juicy, amazing conversations. At least I'm finding it entertaining and fun, just to be in cahoots with you, and being part of your creative energy and your enthusiasm and your curiosity. So look forward to more Karli on the Marketing for What Matters podcast, hosting all sorts of amazing brands that are out there, like we always say, uplifting humanity or healing the planet, or doing both at the same time. Because she's going to be a powerhouse here at Peaceful Media. She already is. It's just that you don't get to see her as much as we would like. So that's all changing here in 2025. And I hope you'll come check out peacefulmedia.com. Check out the new About page. By the time this episode is live, we have to have it done, Karli. So I know you'll be using some of the material from this episode. And until we see you next time, I'm going to just go through those 4 principles again, and then finish with our mission statement. Follow your bliss, stack happy dancing skills, courageously express your passion, and surround yourself with genuine people who are doing all 3 of those things every single day, and allow all that good, juicy vibration and AG1 propel you into the life you want, and the business, if you're launching a business or developing a business, into the business that you ultimately want and the success that you want. Until we see you next time, I'm Jam at Peaceful Media.
I'm Karli at Peaceful Media.
And remember to love more, play more, and do more good. We'll see you soon. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to our podcast, Marketing for What Matters. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google, or Pandora. Love the show? Leave us a review and follow us on social media at Peaceful Media to stay up to date about new episodes. And as always, thank you to this earth for giving us all we've ever needed. See you next time.